Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day just didn't happen overnight, and it was a fight to get it. So one of the things that people should know is that Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day, it was officially it was signed into law in 1983 by one of the most racist presidents ever, who you love, Alan Orr, Ronald Reagan. I'm trying to wipe that stench off of you, but it was officially observed in 1986. Now, many states refused to acknowledge Martin Luther King Day, and they even decided to give it alternate names. So there are currently two states in the country. There might be more. I may not know all of the racist history of where they decide to honor Dr. Martin Luther King Day along with Robert E. Lee's birthday. Robert E. Lee, a white supremacist, a treasonous, somebody who was trying to tear the country apart in two great states, Alabama and Mississippi. They only celebrate MLK Day with treasonous Robert E. Lee's birthday, right? And January 19th is Robert E. Lee's birthday. So Alabama calls this day Robert E. Lee Martin Luther King birthday. That's what they call this day. They celebrate the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who tried to bring the country together, who fought for serious legislation, who lost his life fighting for the rights of poor people, fighting against the Vietnam War, of course, civil rights, that on this day in Alabama, Robert E. Lee is honored on this day. And the same thing with good old Mississippi, that they're just not comfortable enough honoring Dr. King. And mind you, there was no Robert E. Lee Day before. It only comes about because Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day happens. And Virginia was doing the same thing up until last year. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day at two states in this country, at 1.3, decided that we have to honor Robert E. Lee as well. Some important history just to know about. Then it wasn't until 2000 that New Hampshire, good old liberal New Hampshire, and South Carolina, those two states didn't officially acknowledge MLK Day until the year 2000. So the year 2000. And Arizona famously fought against MLK for years, famously. And of course, good old, John McCain is a part of that history as well. And let's not forget Chuck Grassley. He voted against MLK Day. He actually went and voted against it. But Chuck Grassley is still in office today. And, I know towards the end he's been critical of Trump, but he still upheld a lot of Trump's horrible policies. He's voted with Trump 88% of the time. Still in office today. And he's since apologized for voting against MLK Day and all that. And that's wonderful. But your policies are still contradict everything MLK stood for. Everything MLK stood for. Richard Shelby, too, of Alabama, voted against MLK Day, and he is still in office today. He is a sitting senator in Alabama since 1987, and he voted against MLK Day. He was against it. So I just think it's kind of, when I look at this history, I mean, the history of Dr. King is amazing, but I just find it funny. It goes back to the talk we've been having, that this is not who we are. This is not who we are. We are not this country. We are so much this country that to celebrate Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., that in many states, we are still celebrating Robert E. Lee. My boy Richard Fowler says it all the time. There's no Adolf Hitler High School in Germany. There's no, Nazi Day in Germany. We are celebrating Robert E. Lee. Some people are, in conjunction with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. in 2021. In Mississippi, where if I'm right, I believe that state has the highest number of Black people, Mississippi, that state. And we're doing that. It's amazing to me. So That's why I roll my eyes when I see Ted Cruz and these other BS people. Oh my gosh, Dr. King, Dr. King. But just know that some of y'all who advocated against Dr. King for a federal holiday, they are still in office today and passing on this mindset, passing on this BS. So we are there's areas that are still celebrating white supremacy with Dr. King. And that's why when folks say, this is not who we are, this is not who we are. Yes, we are, even down to a federal holiday. It's bad enough we have Christopher Columbus, who never even stepped foot in this country. Never even stepped foot in this country. But to make some folks more comfortable, as if Dr. King, I mean, Robert E. Lee and Dr. King and on the same calendar in Alabama and Mississippi and once upon a time Virginia as of last year? Really? But that's how embedded white supremacy is. That's how embedded it is in our culture. Go ahead.
It also makes people think that it's something that happened a long time ago, right? King and Lee are not contemporaries, right? It's not far past, right? King is something very recent. And I think your story about how this holiday became to be national, I mean, a holiday, you don't have to go to work, you get paid for free. People were fighting against that. That's already problematic in itself, it seems. But how long it took for every place, I mean, we're talking about 2020 to sort of recognize the day.
Robert E. Lee dies in 1870. 1870. And he wasn't assassinated. He wasn't assassinated. He dies in 1870. He was a traitor. Dr. King is assassinated April 4th, 1968. But this is where we are. Back in so one of the things, you know, I often talk about Black Republicans. And when you look at the shift, Dr. King has something to do with that. And I'll break it down just a little bit. Jackie Robinson is close friends with Nixon. And this is when Nixon's running for president the first time against John F. Kennedy Jr. So Jackie Robinson and Nixon are close. And Jackie Robinson was a famous Republican at the time. We're talking about the late 1950s here. He's a famous Republican. He believed in the Republican Party, believed in the ideals, whatever the case may be. Dr. King is arrested. He is locked up for civil disobedience. And Jackie Robinson tells Richard Nixon, at the time Vice President Richard Nixon, you need to call Dr. King. Call him while he is behind bars. This will look great. It's important for folks to see that you care. It's important for folks to understand that you care about this man who is wrongfully behind bars. Richard Nixon refuses to do it. What happens? JFK calls Dr. King when he's behind bars. Now, mind you, JFK at this point, when it comes to civil rights, he was hesitant. You know, folks think he was the civil rights leader. He really wasn't. He was extremely hesitant. But he made that call. The next day, it's in all the papers. And it gets to Black media as well, too. You know, Black media being so important and so robust at the time, and still is now, but really being crucial at the time that JFK Jr. calls Dr. King while he is behind bars. And it's all over the news. So at this point, Jackie Robinson is so disillusioned and so disappointed in Richard Nixon, and it pretty much fractures their friendship, because Richard Nixon didn't have the courage to reach out to Dr. King while he was behind bars, because contrary to what folks think, Dr. King was, the brother was radical. He was pushing for voting rights, fair housing. He believed in fighting for a higher minimum wage. He believed, what folks may not know, as a universal basic income, right? So Nixon didn't want to get involved in that. And then by 1968, at the horrific Republican National Convention, Jackie Robinson just basically walks away from Republicans altogether. But that moment where Nixon refused to call Dr. King, it really is a moment that you see as a watershed moment of Black folks really fully transitioning to the Democratic Party. And it's even before that. You saw it a bit with FDR, though FDR was a stone cold racist. He did create this New Deal and tried to push Black folks out of the New Deal, but nonetheless, they were able to get some kind of benefit. So they were seeing some kind of economic benefit with this New Deal that he didn't want them to be a part of. But nonetheless, they still felt like, okay, here's a policy that we believe is actually working. So Dr. King is also a part of that transition away from the Republican Party. And you were already seeing it earlier. And I always say this, even the Republicans of the 1800s, the mid 1800s, they weren't that great either. Because by 1877, they turned their back on Reconstruction because of an election that was contested, and they left the Negro problem in the South. So yeah, you know, just important to know our history, important how we got to this history, and important to know that there are still people on this day, right now, who, with Dr. King, they want to celebrate Robert E. Lee. It just blows my mind. It blows my mind, and that's one of the things that I talk about. I say it all the time, that when you think about dismantling white supremacy, a piece of it, I say it constantly, and folks kind of think it's just a cheesy thing about learning it in school. It really starts in school. It starts with your education. That you gotta be able to know. I mean, literally, there are little kids right now in Alabama and Mississippi today hearing Robert E. Lee and Dr. King in the same sentence.
Well, and they go to Robert Lee High School.
Right. And they're going to, literally, there's kids right now celebrate. I mean, and that's how white supremacy fosters and manifests, when you're getting it right from the schools,
And
right from
revives
the
the history.
education. Yeah, because when you're a kid, you trust your teacher. Well, your teacher must be right, and you're going to trust your elected official, I would assume. If again, if you are a person who's grown up in this country, had this kind of propaganda education, there are just some things you might think you can trust. And so when I talk about white supremacy, it's that white folks are affected by it as well too. You know, I was saying this since last week. We had Tom Snyder was on MSNBC talking about the deep falsehoods that people have about our history, especially white Americans. That we can, if white Americans aren't knowing our history either, that's not going to help us either. I need white Americans to know Black history. I need them to know Blanche Bruce and Hiram Revels and Crispus Attucks. I need them to know this kind of history. So yeah, it just blows my mind that on this day, folks want to honor Robert E. Lee.